cannot change. You will always be a monster.
Perhaps I didn't make myself clear. I do not wish to give, sell, or trade my bond. You don't seem to be aware of what you are asking me. Allow me to ask you a question in response, Your Majesty. How much are you willing to sell your children for? I asked coolly. Insolent peasant! I felt my lips slowly curling upward as I imagined his precious little lover's life in my grasp, and Arthur begging me to stop. The brat who always thought he was better than I was, on his knees. Seeping from him, surrounding him like an aura, was a blatant rage, so fierce and violent that, uncontained, I felt sure it would burn me to ashes. The very air seemed to warp around him, and the earth beneath him crumbled under his might. I placed my foot between his mangled legs, on the only extremity left on his body aside from his head. "What are you doing?" I looked him dead in the eye and responded with the only words that seemed appropriate. "Taking measures to ensure your filth won't spread to the next generation." Downforce.
Got shit on me. Round everything got shit on me. Cause I'm on top of this world. I'm on top of this world. Yeah.
The moment and nothing's the night. We'll fight till it's over, so we put our hands like the ceiling can't hold us back. This is the moment and nothing's the night. We'll fight till it's over, so we put our hands like the ceiling can't hold us.
I come from the land of Asuras, and am what you lesser races call a deity.
I'm scared. I don't want to die.
Getting tired and I need somewhere to begin. If you have a minute, why don't we go? Talk about it somewhere only we know. This could be the end of everything. So why don't we go somewhere only we know? Make me part of your desire. Guide us, I give you for the very last time. Restless, succeed, boy, lose my eye. All real, no stress, all my uses left behind.
The difference in our abilities is vast enough that I am unsure why you would need us. Can't you simply go to the continent of Alacria and defeat the Vritra? A battle of that magnitude would undoubtedly level the world. Today is the dawning of a new era, and with that new era come new heroes. One such hero has been discovered and is here with us today. Please, welcome with me our newest lance, Arthur LEYWIN.
Down to the door, yeah, someday we'll run you down to you. Viens, sois pas bête, je t'en prie arrête, je suis sûr qu'il reflète pas vraiment ce qu'il est. Ainsi va la vida, 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 ainsi va la vida.
Pode comer, pode comer. And it's because we don't have that much time. Wait, I thought that I had about 2 years left before the war is expected to begin. Arthur, although the full army has yet to arrive, the war has already started.
I decided to name this first tier Burst Step.
Before leaving, Lord Indrath had given me one piece of advice. Oddly, he had activated his ether ability, freezing time for everyone present, even his wife, except for the two of us. It's wisest to close your heart to the elf princess.
You're right. I forget at times that the boy is your own age. Arthur is an anomaly of an entirely different sort, no doubt. I can only imagine what he will be like when he comes back after training with the Asuras. Arthur, is it you? I wasn't some righteous hero out to save the world. Hell, I couldn't even call myself a good person hoping to do his best to fight for his people. No, it was my fault that the war had progressed to this state. It was my fault that this fleet of ships were almost upon us, and it would be my fault when those ships arrived and unleashed a horde of Alacrian mages. I had a reason to fight, and it was not just to protect the few I held dear. It was to right my wrong.
Best to give me your loyalty, 'cause I'm taking royalty. They'll be calling me, they'll be calling me royalty.
Welcome to the room of people who have rooms of people that they love one day. Locked away. Just because we check the guns at the door doesn't mean our brains will change. From hand grenades. You love another psychopath sitting next to you. You love another murderer sitting next to you. You think that I get this sitting next to you. But after all I've said, please don't forget.
How was my family? How was Tessia? How was Elijah? Was he even alive? If so, would I ever get the chance to save him? Elisha, what's going on? How are you? Long time no see, my dear old friend, Gray.
Ash was his brother. He loved him like a brother. And when shit went down, he'd go to war like a brother.
I've dug two graves for us, my dear. Can't pretend I love.
Evil Empire, laughing all the way to the bank.
And what hurts the most is people can go from people you know to people you
Tell me, Dazai, why is it you wish to die?
Let's turn that question around. Is there really any value to this thing we call living?
Sayonara.
I should have stopped him from coming the moment he reached back out to me. The panic that leaked out to him couldn't be taken back, but I should have kept him from seeing it. The moment I saw Arthur approaching, his eyes begging me to be wrong before his gaze drifted past me to the horrible vision beyond, my gut clenched, and I felt tears threaten to take over. Seeing my bond's horrified expression, hearing his exhaled breath as if he'd had his wind knocked out, I wanted to disappear, to take him in my arms, and just disappear. I wanted to be anywhere but there. I would have rather faced another horde of deranged mana beasts by myself than endure the sight of my lifelong bond staring hopelessly at his own father's bloody corpse. Arthur staggered forward. He pushed everyone aside and knelt over his father's unmoving body, and for a moment, it seemed like all was silent. Beasts and soldiers alike seemed to have sensed the heavy veil that descended over the battlefield, but none could feel my bond's state of turmoil as clearly as I could. It hurt. It was excruciating. It was unbearable. I didn't know my heart could hurt this much. I clutched my chest and sank to the ground, unable to endure the pain of his emotions. Tears streamed down my cheeks and blurred my vision. I couldn't breathe as the torrent of emotions continued to surge out of my bond and into me. Grief that threatened to drown everything in its path, a gnawing guilt that ate away at the foundations of our strength, regret like a hurricane, blowing away years of growth and progress, and rage like a forest fire, burning out of control. I could feel these emotions like disasters wreaking havoc inside my heart, tearing away at Arthur's mind and soul. Yet on the surface, Arthur was as silent and still as a statue. With a guttural, primeval howl that tore through me like shards of glass, my bond broke down into tears. The very earth seemed to lament for my bond as his sobs and wails filled the air. The ambient mana all around us shook and surged to match his anger. Arthur, the lance, the general, the white core mage, was at that moment only a boy who had lost his father. The world continued to turn, even as Arthur and I remained frozen in this moment of grieving and loss. The battle, which had gone on for 2 nights, had come to an end.
I lost Gwen. She was my MJ. I couldn't save her. I'm never gonna be able to forgive myself for that.
Sylvie, it's time to go, I said. She reached up and wiped away the tears streaming down my face, but her hand came away red with blood. My blood. Arthur, you're not going to make it. I couldn't shield my thoughts from her in my current state. My mind was an open book. The portal isn't going to stay stable for much longer, so please, I can't have you die too.
Something terrible is going down through the entire town, freaking anarchy and all it brings. I can't sit idly, no, I can't move at all. I curse the name, the one behind it all. Discord, I'm howling out the moon and sleeping in the middle of a summer afternoon.
Up a bed to get my 44 up the just for now. Up a bed to get my 44 up the just.
Sylv, what are you? Try to keep yourself alive while I'm gone, okay? Sylvie said, giving me a toothy grin. Sylv, no! Don't do this! Until we meet again. No, you can't do this to me. I don't want you to die.
Just need time. Snapping 1, 2. Where are you?
I've done too great for us, my dear. Can't turn a life perfectly you in fear. Oh man, what a world of things I get.
But why do I always feel like I'm in the twilight zone? And I always feel like somebody's watching me. How and then I think of all the times you screwed me over.
It felt like Agrona had outplayed us at every turn. What was a mere 2 mortal lifetimes of experience when compared to an ancient Asura's lifetime of intellect and wisdom?
That's all. What's next?
Legalize nuclear bombs.
Nothing you're saying makes any sense. It's like you don't even care. Do not speak to me as if I'm some bystander, boy. I too am an elf. One that has just lost the very country that he grew up in, that he fought 2 wars for. Listen to yourselves. As if having one Asura as an enemy hasn't proven bad enough, you want to go to war with all of Ephialtes. No, if the Asuras were truly our enemies, then we have no chance of winning this war. Bullshit. He may still be a useful tool against Agrona and this legacy. And if he is no longer willing to work alongside the Asura, my lord, I ask, then he will die.
Thieves and beggars never.
It was the manner that told me, Sword. The way it seemed to be drawn to him, as if awaiting his command, like he was constantly reshaping reality without even trying. He didn't just move through the world moved to accommodate his past.
I had done what even the Asuras of the Indrath clan couldn't do. I had forged an ether core.
Minds theorized that if one could understand these 4 edicts of ether, then perhaps they could also gain insight into fate itself. It was a distant, desperate hope. But now that I have met you, Arthur LEYWIN, I believe it may actually happen.
But he has been investigating an element, an edict, higher than what ether encompasses, above that of time, space, and life. Fate.
Drop it down, just wanna see you touch the ground.
Know what to say, but what a shame. If you were mine, you would not get the same. If you were mine, you would top everything. Suicide in the drop, switching lanes and the thing so fly, baby, no propane. Got good pussy, girl, can I be framed? Keep it 100, girl, I ain't no saint, but he the only reason that I'm feeling.
A brief moment of silence passed before I let out a deep breath. What drives you to such lengths? He cleared his throat and stood suddenly. He was silent so long I didn't think he was going to answer, but then a sad smile crept across his features, an expression that contained so little yet so much emotion. I owe to everyone I left behind to come back strong enough to take care of them. Who do you believe could rival these two, who are considered great even among the Asura?
Oh, you know him well, old dear. Perhaps even better than I do. A certain human mage with a penchant for biting off more than a chew. Agrona, Indrath. You speak as if they are the only two beings in the world, as if there is no choice but to serve one or the other. If the world is a coin, Agrona on one side, Tessia on the other, then someone else has flipped that coin, and no matter how it lands, whichever face looks up from the ground, it will be that someone who is looking back down. Who is it you speak of so reverently? I asked, somewhat unnerved by her demeanor. Who do you believe could rival these two, who are considered great even among the Asura? Oh, you know him well, old dear. Perhaps even better than I do. A certain human mage with a penchant for biting off more than he can chew. My eyes flew open, all three of them, as my mind went back to the moments before I finished casting World Eater, when I felt an alien presence watching me, almost as if some greater deity, a true god, had arrived to witness my lowest moment and judge me by it. I hadn't known who it could have been at the time, but now, Arthur LEYWIN.
I'm still attending the Victoria. He looked at me with a wry grin. Now I know you're joking, because only a moron would think of doing a thing like that. His eyes narrowed. You're not kidding. What the hell are you thinking? I'm thinking of killing a scythe. Flashes of instructions blazed in my mind like a branding iron, showing me glimpses of Regis in a dark forest clearing. This is... How did My vision darkened as Cadel's shadowy form barreled toward us.
It's not perfected, but it'll probably still work. Just do it!
As the flood of hellfire was almost on us, Regis closed his eyes, his lupine body growing shadowy and see-through as it became incorporeal. I raised the etheric blade in my hand, but rather than attacking, I reeled back and I plunged the etheric blade into my companion. His body flared before enveloping my sword until the etheric blade grew larger and was sheathed in dark violet flames.
It doesn't matter how many more tricks you pull out, Lesser,
Cadel roared as his shadowy, demonic form neared. Cadel unleashed his arsenal of spells with abandon. A volley of blood iron, a maelstrom of void wind, a barrage of soul fire. But it was useless. The dark violet sword in my hand arced in jagged flames as my body blurred. Concise, wasteless movements carried behind the small openings carved out by my new sword. Arcs of violet tore through every spell spat out by the side, and his gleaming red eyes widened in fear more each time. Ignoring the icy grip around my core, I let Godstep carry me right in front of Cadel's distorted visage. I raised my sword over my head, destruction blooming in a blaze of violet. His ghoulish black arms crossed in front of him, wreathed in soulfire, black metal spikes materializing like shields. The blade came down, passing through the black spikes as if they were nothing but mist. He was crushed to the ground, and a shockwave rippled outward from us, toppling the 30-foot-tall spike that jutted up just behind Cadel. Kyros's voice boomed, shaking the already unstable stadium.
Vekor welcomes the High Sovereign. All hail Agrona Vritra.
I suspect he survived because my daughter somehow sacrificed herself using the ether hearts of her dragon mother, which serves me well. Sylvie was always the greater danger than your little quadra-elemental friend.
People can go from people you know to people you don't.
How about we make a promise? I promise to stay alive so that we can have a future together, a relationship, a family. I watched helplessly as Tess walked away, the sound of blood pounding in my head, muting everything else. I couldn't even hear my own shouts as I begged Tess to stop, to let me fight, to let me die.
You mean you're actually going to kill me?
I mean just that.
Well, go ahead.
I'll do this my own way.
Won't do it. You can't pull the trigger. You can't pull it because you love me. It takes a very brave, a very cold woman to do that, Catherine. I don't think you can.
A pearlescent oval opened over the arena floor, 20 feet in front of the high box. Two figures stepped through. The first was someone I had never seen in person before, but I knew him instantly, and the mere sight of him was enough to sober me from my fatigue. The second, I was less prepared for. Tessia looked exactly as she had when I'd last seen her. Although she looked the same, she was immediately and unequivocally not Tessia. This person masquerading as my oldest friend moved with aggressive confidence. Logically, I understood what I was looking at. But the cold, distrustful look Cecilia gave me from Tessia's eyes still drove a knife through my chest. Agrona's appearance wasn't unexpected, necessarily, but Tessia? Cecilia? Could Tessia even be saved? Was she still in there somewhere? And if she could, was protecting her more important than depriving Agrona of the legacy? I hadn't been ready to face these questions. I still wasn't. Clear crystal bars thrust up out of the ground in a square, with me at the center. The crystal had a liquid smoothness to it, turning just above my head so the bars all ran together, forming a cage. Cecilia had pulled all the mana out of the atmosphere, even out of my body. If I still relied on a mana core, this single spell would have left me powerless. I couldn't even begin to wrap my mind around how such a thing was even possible. I find myself quite eager to see how your new abilities function. I'll take great pleasure in dismantling you piece by piece to find out. I glanced around the stadium. I was surprised to see Kara with one foot on the scorched dirt of the combat field, fallen into a kneel at Agrona's presence, which must have interrupted her rushing out to check on me. She, too, risked lifting her head just enough to watch me. There was genuine terror in her scarlet gaze as her lips moved in some silent prayer. She had been a good friend to me. While I'd been gazing around the Colosseum, the scythes had flown out of the high box and maneuvered around the arena floor to box me in. I again met Cecilia's eyes, searching within them for something, some sign. I had made a promise, but I didn't even know if the woman to whom I'd promised myself was alive in her own body. Agrona waved for the scythes to take me. I'll admit, I'm ever so slightly disappointed. I expected you'd have yet another trick up your sleeve. Still, even if what I've witnessed from you so far is the extent of your abilities, I'm sure I'll find dissecting you a useful distraction. I had to decide. It was time to leave. I could go without her, or I could try to take her with me, try and find some way to pull Cecilia out of Tess's body, bring her back. Or, I grew slightly sick at the thought. But it was the clearest path forward, the most decisive measure. I could assure that Agrona couldn't use Tessia or Cecilia, that whatever power the legacy had couldn't be controlled. I felt my eyes grow wet, but I hardened my heart. Forgive me, Tessia. Bracing myself, I channeled ether throughout my exhausted body. The cage bars were unnaturally strong, but my armor and Asuran physique protected me as I crashed through them, sending crystalline shards spraying in every direction. Mid-step, I conjured the ether blade, drew it back, aimed for her core. Her teal eyes followed me every inch of the way, as if she were able to trace my progress even when using burst step. When the tip of my sword was pressed against her sternum, her eyes widened and flashed green. Mossy green veins spread out across her face beneath her skin, and for an instant she looked resigned as a strained smile graced her painted lips. Her body trembled, her hand rising not for the blade, not in defense, but toward my face. A caress. Art, please. It was Tessia's voice. I released the ether blade. She held my eyes for a heartbeat, 2. Then, the green veins receded. Cecilia, took a step back, giving me a look of deepest loathing. Oh, that was close, wasn't it? Agrona said, amused. You really thought for a second you could do it, didn't you? You're only cold-hearted and calculating when it's easy, Gray. In reality, you're weak, emotional, and rather prone to attachment. What should have been a moment of victory instead rang hollow and empty, filling my mouth with a taste of cold ashes. Take him, Agrona ordered. The scythes closed in. Agrona's confident smirk finally slipped away as I activated God's Step. He reached for me, his power suddenly unleashed. His look of astonishment was the last thing I saw as the etheric pathways took me far away from the Colosseum and the Victoriad.
Where am I? I wondered, pulling back from something moving beneath me. A hand extended out from the light. Its delicate strength seemed familiar, felt like looking in a mirror, and I grasped it with frantic strength. The hand pulled me to my feet. It was Tessia Eralith. My vessel. What is happening? I asked, frustrated by the weakness of my own voice. I felt like a whimpering child standing before her, but the elven woman was completely at ease in this clearing at the heart of a storm of strangling vines and roots. Where are we?
In your mind.
She answered simply.
You are dreaming, and your subconscious is trying to convey what is happening inside of us.
A dark green, snake-like coil bumped against me, and I took a nervous step toward the center of the clearing. I brushed a lock of dusty brown hair out of my face, unsure what to say.
It's the Elderwood Guardian Arthur gifted to me.
She continued, casting a thoughtful, sad sort of look around.
Our body absorbed its mana core. Integration, I never knew.
She shook her head in wonder.
When the core dissolved, the Elderwood Guardian's beast will was released. As, I suppose, was I.
She shrugged, as if the second point didn't mean very much to her.
The unconstrained will is feeding off the mana now integrated within our body. It is tearing us apart.
My body. I ground out, the word art stabbing like a dagger into my mind each time she said it. A humorless smile played at the edges of her lips, but I couldn't read the intent behind her expression. Even as we were talking, the clearing in which we stood was shrinking. A pulse like a slow heartbeat ran through them every few seconds, and with each beat they grew. I tried to close my eyes, wanting to focus, but I couldn't. A dream, I remembered. How do I stop it? There was cold fire in the elf's eyes as she answered. You control it. Only, she paused, watching a tendril of leafy vine uncurl beside my face. You can't. The Elderwood Guardian's beast will isn't just mana for you to dominate. It takes time, focus, and a little bit of luck. We don't have time. This body will be dead within the hour. I gnashed my teeth and stepped toward her threateningly. When she looked at me with pitying amusement, I suddenly felt like a child balling my fist at an adult, and I hated it. You'll die too then, I ground out, struggling to maintain my senses and not give way to despair. I don't think you. The words caught in my throat as I remembered her wrestling for control of my body when Grey had attacked me at the Victoriad.
I don't want to die, but I am willing to. We are enemy combatants, Cecilia. If we met on opposite sides of the battlefield, I would be ready to lay down my life to defeat you. Here, if I could trade my life for yours, wouldn't it be worth it?
Please, I begged in a raspy whisper, reaching for her hands. My life was stolen from me, all because of an accident of my birth, something I couldn't control. I never asked for any of this. I just want my life back. You can understand that, can't you? Eventually, Agrona will send me back to my me and Nico. You can have this body back when I'm gone. I promise it. Tessia let out a little, musical laugh, then covered her mouth and looked at me with a sickening fusion of mirth and pity. I sat up straight and glared at the elf. You don't understand anything. You have no idea what I've been through. Her brows crept up as the amusement in her smile bled away, leaving only sadness.
Nothing you've ever done, no thought you've ever had, is a secret from me. So much about Arthur makes sense, now, knowing everything. His maturity, his confidence, even as a child, and I thought you'd be the same, having lived. You're a child, stunted. You haven't had 2 lives, not even one. Which is why you can't see what's being done to you. You know, of course, but you don't see.
I reached for my mana, wanting nothing more than to burn the elf's soul from my mind, but my magic was gone. I was defenseless, empty. It was my worst nightmare come true. In my despair, I failed to notice the vine wrapping itself around my right arm. When I finally realized what was happening, I flinched away from it, but it held me fast. Then they were all over me, and Tessia just watched with that distant sadness. I wanted to curse her, beg her, but I couldn't do anything. I was paralyzed. The Elderwood Guardian was choking the life from me, both in the dream and out of it. I was dying. I couldn't believe it. It felt so purposeless, so empty of meaning. But this was, I woke up.
Everything you say make me look the other way. I don't wanna know, so I'ma let it fade. Baby,
Leave the fucking dragons to me.
Destruction was mine now. It belonged to me. With it, I could burn the heart from my enemy's chest, turn the air in his lungs to fire, boil the blood in his veins. I pictured the amethyst flame spreading across all of Alacria, erasing the continent from existence. Then, Agathan would be peaceful again. My visions tinged a shade of lavender as ether gathered around me. The motes of purple danced as if celebrating my ascension to the throne. I truly felt like a deity. Like an Asura.
Now, there was something akin to real terror in them. These creatures had been trained to wage a quiet, shadowy war against deities. But they were children playing at being gods. They understood nothing. They were nothing.
I could.
A purple flash lit up the highest level of the cavern. Standing at the high road's edge near the palace, Arthur LEYWIN stood armored in gold-rimmed black scales with onyx horns curling down from the sides of his head like a vritra. He stepped forward, closer to the edge, and each footfall was the beating of a war drum. The sound of it swelled in my chest, setting my heart racing and blood pumping with adrenaline. The enemy, on the other hand, shrank. The Alacrian mages pulled back, huddling close behind their shields, frightened eyes turning to the sides. The sides seemed to dim. The entire city seemed to hold its breath. Slowly, Arthur raised one arm. In it, he held a broad black horn that curled like a mountain ram's. He tossed it over the edge, and it seemed to fall unnaturally slowly, turning over again and again.
Agrona has exhausted my patience for the last time,
he said, his voice rolling like thunder through the cavern. The sides flinched backward, and a tremor ran through the Alacrian forces.
You have 10 seconds.
The Alacrians broke. Men shouted as they stamped and shoved, bowling over one another in an effort to retreat back through the raw hole in the cavern wall. Melsry and Viessa floated up slightly. Together, they bowed slightly, then turned and flew out of the cavern, over the heads of their retreating soldiers. Then they were gone. Just like that, the battle won.
Play the card was made to start, and after he's been hooked, I'll play the one that's on his heart. I'll give him hard, show him what I got.
No matter how many gods fall, there will always be another to stand against you. They will fall as well.
Want to know what I've become? Driving my blade through his neck. God killer should be appropriate.
I can never snitch. That's all.
He is behind everything. In shadows, always.
Don't break any open star, hey, you let us know it's a brand new star. I'll be the first that you watch and meet his eye. Make me your ego, bring up for the club. You gotta love this guy. Turns out, leave him in the tail. Genuflect, show some respect, you gotta want me. Now try your best to curl, brush up your Sundays along, and come to me in a spectacular quarter.
DJ TV, bros.
Once the great King Grey, powerful warrior, fallen to his death, but reborn as Arthur LEYWIN, a child with magical abilities. He has been given a second chance at life.
This is what Agrona has been researching for the last few hundred years, Grey. And your reincarnation was what allowed the gears to start turning, Nico said. And that was how I was able to reincarnate into this world. After all, if someone deserves a new life, it isn't you. It's Cecilia and me. Bullshit.
One of those orphans did not fall into the hands of those deities.
The one who in his world was known as King Grey, who was only filled with a thirst for revenge, now in this world known as Arthur LEYWIN, self-proclaimed as God-Killer, recognized as a true deity, is going to put an end to this entire war of gods.